Speaking of Vikings hires, though, they have finally hired a GM, and they've interviewed some head coaches, including D'Amico Ryans and some other guys.
They have like tape on like 8 different guys or something like that. So
yeah, they have a scheduled interview with, I think it was something close to 8 as well. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is, I believe, how he pronounced it in his press conference today. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Sounds like they cut off that first O. So it's not Kwesi Odafa. It sounds like it's Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Kwesi. I saw like the pronunciation was like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Yeah, I was just going based off how he said it in his conference. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He could have been just trying to speak quickly, so they're going to double. I heard the guys on local radio say that when they bring him in, they're going to ask him to clarify. But yeah, they brought him in. He's 40 years old. He's a young guy. He sounds super smart, super excited, has some connections to Minnesota. He has a friend who went to Moorhead, he said in his press conference. Yeah. He says, do not call him an analytics guy. He doesn't like that label because he's kind of looped in with the analytics people. He doesn't like that. He's like, I'm a researcher. I care about data and research. I'm not analytics. We will mark that down and make sure to mention that in the future. It's first thing, apparently, he's calling all the players.
Yeah. You watched that full 25-minute thing or whatever?
Not the full 25 minutes. I watched the full first 15 minutes of one of the press conferences and then clips of the rest. I think I wanted to, after listening to him speak, I'll just do it here. Wow, let's go to war for him. I want to go to war.
I would have been there in the stands,
he seems super cool. Definitely a new change of leadership, totally needed.
Yeah, they even asked him the whole Spielman and the scouting thing. They asked him about that, and he's like, I'm gonna have to say I'm completely different than that. That's me. He's like, do I care about scouting and stuff like that? Sure, but it's a bigger picture. So
everything's big picture to him, which is awesome.
And then I love when he said there, they asked him, it's all right, first things first, you need to find a head coach. And he's like, no, I need to find a partner that will work with me, a partner for myself to help me build what I want to, or build the organization how it should be built. So
speaking of doing things completely different, I heard some shocking news about Mike Zimmer today.
Yeah, I saw that tweet.
So they have, when they rebuilt their facilities, practice facility, got the new stadium, there's 9 TVs in the players' locker room. They've never been turned on. Mike Zimmer didn't allow the players to watch TV. He removed all of the arcade machines, foosball tables, pool tables, made sure none of those were in the building. And when the players asked for a basketball court, he said no. Why? Because he only wanted them to focus on football. The only things that were ever put on those TVs was the schedule for the day. I was listening to a former Gopher player talk about this, and he was shocked and he could not contain his anger. He's like, that would stress me out. He's like, the locker room is where these teams build together. And the same former Gopher player said his one biggest issue with the Vikings is he's never been able to point out leadership. Where's the leadership? There's lack of leadership. It's because there was no leadership. It was Zimmer's way or no way.
Right.
And that's why that was huge, shocking to me. If you ever been in a sport where you're in the locker room, the locker room is where a lot of goofiness happens. It's where a lot of relationships are built. When it comes to the higher levels, in college, they try to give these players full Dave and Buster's level games to play,
right?
Because they want these guys to hang out. If you're there for 2 hours playing Madden, the Gophers have Xboxes and PlayStations set up,
sure,
so these players stick around. Mike Zimmer wanted the opposite, and one of the local guys that we listen to here, Chris Hockey, was saying, because he's been in the new business for decades.
Sure.
And he said, with previous coaches, the players wouldn't, they'd be sticking around. And he always thought it was so weird that these players would, there'd be a train of cars leaving the second practice was over or a game was over.
Sure.
And he didn't know why. And then we found out today, because Adam Thielen brought it up on an interview in a podcast, that Zimmer didn't allow TV, didn't allow games, nothing. There was no sense of unity, friendship, camaraderie on a team sport. No wonder the Vikings can't find success. They've had this mentality. And then he said it was completely opposite because Leslie Frazier allowed players to run practices. Apparently, when Adam Thielen first got onto the Vikings, the first day of practice, there were players lounging on the grass.
So we want something kind of in between.
We need an in between. Yes. Yeah. We want the players to feel like they have freedom and control, but we also want them to feel structured.
Yeah.
structure doesn't mean like you have to.
Yeah, I would love to see the first thing after when Kwesi said that he was going to, I'm calling him Kwesi because we're on a first name basis.
Mr. Adofo-Mensah.
Yeah, like he's going to like right after this, I'm going to call some players. You know, it's like I want to talk to anybody and everybody to learn like what they want, what made them want to be a Viking, what do they love about being a Viking, stuff like that. So I'm very curious who he's talking to. Like, I wonder if he's talking to the captains, like he's talking to all the captains. So if he's talking to Harry and Kendricks and Daniil and I think Pierce.
I also wouldn't be surprised
Alvin
to see if he talked about, maybe he talks to Case Keenum because he was with him in Denver or Cleveland. Like maybe he gives him a quick call, like what was it like in Minnesota versus Colorado, like since he can, or Cleveland, because like maybe he can
or
get
Denver,
or Denver,
right?
Like
what was it, Minnesota compared to Denver and Cleveland, you know?
Right, like talk to somebody he has in touch with that actually has Minnesota ties that's been elsewhere. I think he could talk to guys like that, as well as Thielen, Kendricks, Harry are the first three. I'm like, Thielen, Kendricks, Harry, and then obviously want to talk to Kirk and Dalvin.
Kirk, yeah.
However, a consistency that we've seen with all these players is one thing that they don't want to change at all. Like obviously they want a complete rehaul of the mentality of the team. One thing they don't want changed is the wide receiver coach McCardell needs to stay. You have defensive players, offensive players, assistants, everyone's saying he is like the reason. If you get rid of McCardell, Justin Jefferson won't re-sign, is the most impactful quote I saw.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like you look at your wide receiver room and you have a top three wide receivers, and you have a fourth receiver that you're like, yeah, like I'd like to see him get some spurts and like see what he can do. And
you have a fifth
set. So
D.D. Westbrook was good where he got in.
Right.
Like you have a full wide receiver room of talent. Full.
Right. Yeah, I know that. Like from the beginning, I knew McCardell was like one of the first ones, and then like for us, it's like, all right, I know a lot of these guys have had relationships with Andre Patterson, but
I was shocked to see people aren't jumping to his defense, but that's all McCardell.
Yeah,
all of it.
And he was one of the newer guys, you know, like last year was, and then our special teams coach was also really good comparatively to what we've had. So
that's the thing is we don't know whether Adofo-Mensah is going to be good.
We don't know that Kubiak needs to go and Zimmer needs to go.
Basically, everybody that Zimmer brought in and coached up that Zimmer has brought from his own needs to go because we don't know what their mentality is going to be. I think the assistants and stuff are going to end up being the head coach's choice, but the head coach himself is going to be Kwesi's choice 100%.
Yeah. So I hope Kwesi is like, hey, listen, like we can build your coaching staff together, but your wide receivers, which is a very important part of our team and probably the face of our team, Justin Jefferson, at least right now, wants this guy to stay in whatever capacity he needs to stay in. He needs to stay, something like that.
And anybody who's been listening,
a ton of room
these past couple of weeks, Mike McDaniel is my top choice. D'Amico Ryans is up there.